Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So the other day we had touched on the farmers, the dairy farmers who were in a crisis situation where they cannot find a place to send their product to. A lot of these dairy farmers, when they produce their product and send it off to the factories that are consuming or buying their product, their dairy, all that milk, they're packaging it up for restaurant use. They're packaging it up for bulk consumption. And if they do not find a place to send that to, then they don't buy it from the dairy farmers, and the dairy farmers have no other choice but to dump that milk. Those cows have to be milked every day, or else they end up in, a critical state where they end up even getting sick and dying if they don't get milked every day. So those dairy farmers have to milk those cows, and if they don't find a place to send that product to, then they have to dump it. And that's essentially what's happened, is because these restaurants are shutting down, and the factories that produce the bulk cheese and the bulk products that these restaurants buy, they're not buying it from the dairy farmers, and so the dairy farmers have no other choice but to dump it. But they're not the only farmers who are in crisis right now. I was reading an article coming out of Bloomberg talking about how a lot of these cattle farmers who raise cattle are finding issues with finding the feed supply. See, a lot of this feed supply comes from ethanol, if you can believe it or not, and the spent grain that is used to making this ethanol is what a lot of these cattle farmers are using to feed their cattle. And so it's not like the only thing they use, but it is part of the food supply that goes to this particular industry of raising cattle. And so what's happened is that a lot of these farmers who, just like anything else out there, everybody's kind of hoarding up on things. These cattle farmers are no different. They saw the writing on the wall and they're like, oh, hey, you know what? If we're going to come in short supply on this feed, we better load up. And so they pretty much wiped out all the feed suppliers who are producing the feed for these cattle farmers. And now they got a situation where a lot of these guys who didn't do that are coming across issues trying to find, the feed to give to their cows. And it's not like these guys all have big giant fields or something they can send their cows out to graze on the grass. A lot of these people are raising their cattle on feed lots where they have to, come up with all the feed that these cows need in order to survive or be raised into slaughter, sizes. So yeah, the cattle farmers are out there are starting to come up with an issue, and it's not just here in the United States. This is taking place in Germany and France and other places all over the world as well. And it's, and they all kind of saying the same story, that the people who kind of saw this happening are buying up all the feed, and so there was like this, hoarding up on the feed that that these cattle farmers are buying. It's a very interesting times going on there with these poor farmers, and they're not the only ones. They're meat processing plants. They're going into a critical state as well. There's been a couple of meat processing plants that have had to shut down because some of their employees are coming down with this coronavirus. And, if all of a sudden a bunch of these employees have coronavirus, then you have to shut down the whole facility because you don't want to spread it to all the rest of the employees out there who are working these meat processing plants. Now, something I found interesting when I was reading these articles is that back in the 60s, there was like over 9,000 meat processing plants out there who would package up the meat and, send it off for retail consumption. That is now down to 1,100. There's 1,100 processing plants, a little over 1,100 of these meat processing plants that package up the meat for retail consumption. And of that 1,100, 215 of them produce 80% of the retail meat that is purchased. Can you believe that? 215 plants. Think about it. If half of the meat processing plants shut down out there, or even, a small fraction of these 215 meat processing plants shut down, that is going to really put a big damper on the amount of meat that you're going to be able to find down there at the store. So, the food supply chain is really coming into question here. And I talked to a lot of people who are, I said, hey, how much food do you see at the grocery store right now? And I just came back from the grocery store, and the meat section has been depleted. There is like a third of what would normally be there. And I went there pretty early, so it's not like I got there late in the day, like right after dinner time when people run out to the store to go get food for dinner. I got there fairly early today, and it was there was just a small amount compared to what I would normally see. And even over in the produce section, although there was plenty there, it too looked, fairly depleted. Like there was maybe 2/3 of what I would normally see over at the produce section of things as well. So it's not like people are hoarding, like you can hoard up on the meat, and freeze it or do whatever. But when it comes to produce, that stuff goes bad. So it's not like you're going to buy, 15 heads of cabbage and, hold on to the, hold on to all this, produce, because it's going to go bad on you before you have a time to consume it. Now, if you're like me, or not me, but more my wife, you can can that stuff up and preserve it. And so I still have promised you guys a canning video, which I will get done for you guys here whenever we can. We have opposite days off, so it's hard to set up a time to do a video like that where I can, where she can do the work and I can do the video of what she's doing. But yeah, there's definitely a shortage in the food supply taking place, and I don't know if it's necessarily due to hoarding or if it's done by this, like the meat processing plants, if there's a lot of people who are getting sick. I'm even reading how, like, and I don't know how much this is actually going to affect, but you think about it, like transportation is really cut back. And down in California, it's a lot of migrant workers who go down there and do the who do the field work down there for all the farms and stuff like that. Not to mention a lot of produce comes in from Mexico. And if we have like an issue with transportation and people not willing to either drive the trucks or come into the United States to travel here to come to do the work, we could have a major disruption in the farming industry because of this coronavirus and everything that's taken place. So, we're gonna have to see about that, come the time. But, as of right now, we're really starting to see the effects of this coronavirus hitting the farmers and, the shutdown of America, messing with the supply chain of things. Pretty interesting times when you think about it. Anyway, I will leave links down in the description for you guys. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.